Liz here, who will be joining us today from the Miami Association. We also have Carolyn Martinez from CNC Title Company, and we have Violeta Rocha from Lifestyles International Realty, and yours truly, Gabriel Amedee. So today we will be going over the following agenda, which is basically going over all the legal ramifications that are unfortunately part of consequences that come with cybersecurity and cyber fraud. Then we're going to go into passwords, earnest and escrow. We're going to talk about transaction management platform that's provided by the association that you guys are able to capitalize on right now without any purchase. And then we're just going to go over some vocabulary that might have gotten you lost throughout the presentation. And if you have any questions, please hold them till the end. We'll be more than happy to discuss them as deeply as you would like. Awesome, let's move forward. You want to take it away, Liz?
You got it. Thank you so much. So first I'm going to start with kind of the boring part, but also why this is so critical for everybody who's here, everybody who is a realtor or a broker, or frankly, any business that you have in the state of Florida where you are working with consumer information. So every covered entity, every governmental entity, and every third-party agent, it's your responsibility to take a reasonable measure to protect and secure all of the data that you have that has personal information. So let's break that down just a little bit. What's personal information? It means if you have people's birthdays, their cell phone numbers, their email addresses, and I know many of you probably have a little bit more than that. I know that there are still practices for scanning driver's licenses. You're getting financial information where you are getting letters of approval, things like that. So that if you have any of that information, that means that you have to secure it. And you're a covered entity, meaning that you're responsible if you have more than 500 individuals of that data. So as a successful practitioner, if you have a CRM of any size, it probably has at least 500 individuals who are residents of the state of Florida. Today, we're going to focus on Florida, but you should know that if you are working nationally and internationally, the laws are in some states and for other state residents, even though you don't live there, would apply to you. So if you have more than 100 residents of the state of California, you have a different set of much more strict laws that apply to you. And there are new laws in place for residents of Massachusetts or Virginia. Massachusetts has had strict laws, but not quite as strict for a long time. And then the European Union, and that falls under what is known as GDPR, which you may have heard of. If you were to have a breach of your database, if you thought somebody was able to get into your email and because of that get into your CRM, that means that you have to let this state know within 30 days that happened. And then you will also have to notify anybody whose information that you have that there may have been a breach. You are also required to dispose of any records that you don't need. Now, that doesn't mean you should throw everything away. Obviously, there are tax liabilities, financial liabilities, and all of the requirements under those. But if you don't have a need for them, you should not keep them because you're responsible for them. So if you are not responsible for a transaction, you probably don't want to keep a copy of somebody's driver's license or their date of birth or anything that could be considered personally identifiable information that would increase that umbrella of liability. So with that in mind, I always like to start with the low-hanging fruit. We have these people who should be experts here. This is an interview with the LAPD that was on television. And here in the background, we can log into a computer that is on their network. And so, yes, sometimes you do have to write down a password, but maybe don't write it on a whiteboard that's going to be on TV. We can all be better than that. Here's another fun example. Everybody, we all know the Super Bowl always has to be highly secure. It can always be considered a high-risk target. But here, ironically, in an interview highlighting the security at the Super Bowl and their secret backend, they have the Wi-Fi access for the whole system available there. And any hacker worth their chops, once they can get into the Wi-Fi system, can probably get into the other machines on the network. So let's all just try to be better than that. And what it all comes down to is you can spend money on all sorts of tools and all sorts of software, but what it all comes down to is really what one human does. And so the best thing you can do is educate yourself and be super aware. So what we don't want you to do as part of this class is get overwhelmed and throw up your hands and go, I'm never going to be able to do this. There's no way. The hackers are all too smart. Just don't be an easy target. And we're going to give you great tools and information today so that you can help yourself and you can help your coworkers. So, and here's the other, the reason this is also super important. Wire fraud is absolutely a real problem, and it has increased significantly over the last 10 years. This is from February of 2020. The 2020 look back is not available yet from the FBI Internet Crime Report. But in 2019, almost 12,000 victims lost money to wire fraud as part of a real estate transaction. And yes, we know that there are way more transactions that happen in the country every year, but to those people that this happened to, this is life-changing and life-altering, and you don't want it to happen to your customers, and you don't want to be associated with anybody that it happens to. So we're going to teach you today how to do your best to protect all of your consumers' information and protect you and your business. And remember, this is not only happening to big companies and giant corporations. Small business absolutely is always a target. And just because you don't have a big budget does not mean that you cannot protect yourself. So the other thing that happened, and this has been in the news for the last few years now, once the big 2017 Equifax data breach happened, 148 million consumers. So basically, anybody who has ever had a credit card has had their identity breached and has been subject to this. But that doesn't mean that we are not still responsible for protecting the transaction that's taking place. So we're going to talk about awareness. So what you should notice with all of the things that happen in your transaction, and then best practices to improve your way along here. So the first is third-party vendors. So as realtors, obviously, you didn't build your own software company. You didn't build the computer that you work on every day. So you need to be aware of how those work and how the data works in them, and then what your responsibility is. Any third-party groups that you work with, you're responsible for them. And so you should just look at at your software agreements and the privacy policies that are in there and what the data and how they are handling the data on their side. So you'll want to know what their incident response plan is. If they were to have a breach on their side, will they let you know? Because if they have a breach, you are still responsible for it. You cannot outsource your responsibility entirely. The number one way that systems are compromised and stolen is phishing. So that is someone trying to contact somebody as someone else and trying to catch their information coming back. Usually executive staff are targeted, and that's because when you look at a business website, those are the names that are always listed. They don't list the entire company, but just those top names. And that's how they try to find those people. And then it's very specific. And so that's called not just phishing, but spear phishing. Most susceptible is on your phone, because on your phone, you can't always see those fine details that are very obvious in phishing attacks. So on your big computer screen, it's usually super easy to see little oddness in logos, or you can catch those typos. But on your smartphone, you're usually in a hurry. Maybe it's early in the morning, you just woke up. And sometimes the phishing attacks that you receive look super urgent, like you've been locked out of your email, you've been locked out of your CRM, and you just want to make sure that none of your day gets messed up and interfered with. So always pay attention and pay attention to the email structure. So here's some examples of phishing attempts. So in this one, even though they had the correct person's name, they had an incorrect email address for that person. So that was the number one flag. The number two flag is my email system actually flagged this and said, hey, this looks to be fraudulent. And then the third thing is, this is kind of an odd way for this person to have spoken to me. My boss is usually not so concerned with how much I have on my plate, nor would she ever say that. She would say, hey, can you do this? This one, again, looks really legitimate, right? The logo here looks really good. The platinum card looks good, though it's a little cut off here at the bottom. These are actually the exact same fonts that come through from American Express. So this all looks good too. But the sender here, T Online from Denmark, is not any sort of legitimate American Express address. But you can see where on your phone, where it wouldn't display this, where it would be really obvious here. So what are the takeaways for best practices? Always be aware of third party. You should know what you have and what you need to secure, and just try to stay educated. Any of your passwords that you have, try not to reuse them anywhere else. So there's actual hacker databases out there that know that me, Liz at miamire.com, is also liz.sturrock at gmail.com, and is also Chicago Girl at yahoo.com. And they have knitted all of those things together. And what happens then is they say, okay, well, we found one password for this one email account, and they will keep trying it on all these other websites. So absolutely have different IDs for your different websites and different passwords for each website. All of your passwords should be complex. You can consider using passphrases or an algorithm, so that you could use something like the first letter of every sentence, and maybe it's like a quote from a movie that you like, and then attach something else that's different for everything. Maybe it's the first letter of that website, or the first letter after the first letter of that website. I recommend using a password vault or password manager. I like 1Password, but I don't endorse any particular product. LastPass is an excellent product as well. And then enable two-factor authentication. Yes, it's annoying, but it is absolutely the most secure. I constantly get pings at weird hours of the morning that somebody is trying to hack into my Instagram account. I have no idea why. I have the most boring Instagram account in the world. It's pictures of what I've grilled and my cat. So, but people still want to do it because verified accounts, or not even verified accounts, good, normal accounts that are not, Russian bots, are very valuable, particularly if they're well established, and they'll be used as hopping off points for something else. Common sense is your friend. Always say, does this make sense? Would this person normally email or text you with that request? Does your bank ever ask them to send you your password? No, they don't. They also very rarely cold call you. And if they ever do, hang up the number and call a number don't ever call the number that is in an email, or in that particular email that they've sent you. You can always use the bank's app. There's always good information in there, and it's been authenticated to you. Does it sound like somebody that you have been working with? And again, same thing with attachments, because attachments are payloads. Is it something that you're expecting from them, whether it's from a client or from your manager? It's not bad customer service to think and wait a minute or two and not be reactive. I know we always want to be proactive for our customers and our clients, and for our coworkers and for other realtors, but always remember that it could always be somebody trying to insert themselves in a transaction. Okay, and then the other thing is keep the personal private. So unless it's something like, you're doing like a TransUnion or credit verification, don't use your mother's maiden name. Don't use something that has to be super secure that is used for real verifications. It's okay to lie in your security questions. Nobody knows what the first car you had was, or what the mascot was for your high school basketball team. So either use something else use something that you can remember, or just make something up and keep it stored in your password manager. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our sponsor for this class, Carolyn Martinez from CNC Title. You're on mute.
Yeah, Carolyn, speak up. One thing I wanted to touch real quick from the last slide, the one before the comedy one, was, yeah, I think it was 2 slides before, right before that one. Yeah, so the bad customer service part, this is one that it occurs to a lot of realtors, that, you know, speed is it's something that's really valued in our business. So we just always assume that going is the best way to manage and to go about our business. But something I stress a lot is that it's never great to be in a rush to be wrong. You always want to take a pause. You always want to take just a couple seconds at least, take a breather, and be extremely present about what it is you're doing, because at the end of the day, we are managing some very sensitive information, and we have to manage it with extreme care. And that involves, you know, double, triple, even quadruple checking sometimes, because the information is that important, and very small decisions can make an immensely huge impact. And you're always going to wish you would have taken a breather, taken another minute to review every time you make a mistake. So if you know that's what you're going to resort to, you might as well just start now and making a habit of double, triple checking every single sensitive information or important email you're getting. Try not to be in the car when you're answering, you know, wire instructions or anything too grave if you were to make a wrong mistake. Just be more present, guys. But I'll let Carolyn jump in now.
Hi there, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. So today's topic of wire fraud, it's a pretty serious one. It's basically when somebody, a perpetrator, wants to, or has the ability to, somehow or another get into our emails, and we don't know who. It could be, we've got so many people involved in the transaction. We have the realtors, we have the lenders, we have sellers, we have buyers. So there's no way of identifying how they have spam, scam, spoofed, phished the emails, which are primarily the ones that they're doing, along with telephone calls and faxes. But that's how they are infiltrating our computers, and they're cloning our emails, whether it be the title company, the attorneys, the realtors, lenders, whoever it is. And it's an extremely serious situation. They basically mirror the computer, and they just stay there days and days monitoring the transaction. And when they see the closing is coming up, it's an imminent closing, then they will start sending these emails to, and they'll take our logos, or they'll take, you know, like Liz was mentioning, they'll practically copy the email. But if you actually hover over the email, you'll see that it's not coming from cnctitle.com. You'll see it's not coming from lender.com. Or it is hard to tell with the realtors because of the Gmails and all those things. But if it's from a lender, a title company, an attorney, you could usually tell it's not the email if you actually hover over. And I know it's a lot to do, but we have to do it. It's part of our ALTA best practices, and it's what we do. And at least as a title company, that is what we're supposed to be doing. And this is where we try and encourage everybody to get the actual wiring instructions should come from the title company. Realtors, I know, want to help their client, and they want to sort of be the one-stop rapport shop for the client and say, okay, you know, here's the title company's wiring instructions, you know, and they're trying to be helpful. And I understand that. It's just that it has gotten dramatically worse. Even with the pandemic, it has gotten even worse than it was already happening for various reasons. And they're getting better at it. We try and get better, and they get better. The hackers get better, we get better. And you're just, you know, you're better off telling your clients, you know, all of our information from the onset. This is your title company, this is their information, this are their phone numbers, and let us send them the wiring instructions. And we have our wiring instructions, at least we do, and most people are trying to get them in a secure way or password protected. And the best way is to just have the client call us directly for the passwords and verbally verify. Even with the password, still call us and verbally verify our wiring instructions. It is the most proactive way to prevent any type of mishap with, unfortunately, the buyer getting the wrong instructions. And it's not just buyers. This also happens with sellers. If they come from, the sellers will send us, we have this thing called the disbursement authorization, which is a form that the sellers have to fill out at closing, where we're going to send their wire, their seller proceeds. So if you, as a title company, or even as a realtor, if you see that the seller, quote unquote, is sending you revised wiring instructions, right there, that's a flag. To have something emailed to us, I know it's the first thing that they do, but we have to turn around and take that, and we have to verbally verify with the sellers at a phone number that we're familiar with. And sometimes we even ask them to repeat their social securities or their something that only we would have in our file in order to know that it's a seller. So those are the main things that I would say, in order, I'm trying to, I know Liz said a lot with respect to how can we identify and prevent. And with the identifying, look for grammar. There sometimes some of these things that we've seen, the grammar is just terrible. It's not the way that the emailing or the transaction, the conversations have taken place throughout the transaction. And if you're vigilant to that and you're paying attention to that, you will say, wow, this doesn't sound, like Liz said, doesn't sound like anybody related to this transaction that I've been dealing with. And as Gabe said, pause, stop, just take a breather. It doesn't have to be. These people create urgency. Hurry up, buyer, send the money if you want to close on time, if you want to get your keys, et cetera, et cetera. Just ignore that for 1 minute and then call your title company and verify. It's extremely important. Okay, yes, never share online banking information, never share access codes. This thing about getting on with public computers. I know that when we go to Starbucks and all these places that say free Wi-Fi, we all just want to get onto their free Wi-Fi. That is the absolute worst thing you could do. That is where fraudsters infiltrate your emails. And it's sad to say, but that's how they get in. And then they already have it and they're already in there. And then we don't know how, and they turn around and end up hacking a transaction because we don't know where it originated. And we don't need to know where it originated. What we need to do is be proactive and prevent the situation. What else can I tell you? Let me see. Let me look here and see tips for prevention. So I think I've already pretty much talked about well, let me see. Let me look at the screen and see if there's something else I can tell you. Yeah, the way that wire fraud works also, just so everybody kind of understands that, the importance of this whole wire fraud conversation is, many people feel that if it happens, they could go to their bank and they're going to get their money back. The chances of that happening, whether they file an FBI report, whatever it is, there's a 99.9% chance that money's never going to be recovered. What these people are doing is they're just sitting in front of their computers trying to just wait and wait and wait. And as soon as that money, if they manage to get the buyer to send it to the wrong account, it's gone. It's complete. It'll be gone like within seconds. There's no way to recover that. And if there's a miracle and they can, I don't even want to say that there's a miracle and it can be done. It's just always inform the client that, verbally verify, because you'll never get your money back. And it's an extremely big point to make. And the main thing is be proactive. That's all I could tell you, is be proactive with your client. Make sure that the client calls us, and always make sure that they're calling the numbers that they're given in the beginning. All of our phone numbers on Google are there, verified, because they also have a way to call with fake phone numbers. I've even seen them do fraud or for hacking on faxes. So all of those things have to be constantly verified.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate all the information. One more thing I wanted to add before we switch over to Violet is the fact that a lot of these actions are basically just constant reminders that we can give to our clients. I know it's very easy for us to see our client commit an action that's not our fault and kind of feel hands-free about it. But I think we've all dealt with humans and buyers in this real estate world. And we understand that a lot of times, the bigger the mistake, the less likely that people will want to hold themselves accountable for that mistake. So when a buyer accidentally sees an email that looks like it's coming from you and they send 20, 30, 40, $50,000, I know that the buyer clicked the email. We know that the buyer just went really quick and didn't really review. But guess what that buyer knows? They know for some way or another that they are not responsible and they're going to find a way to pin it on you. And it doesn't matter how it's not your fault. It's really going to come down to the buyer to share their story. And their story is not going to be a pretty one. They're going to let everyone they know be extremely knowledgeable. They're going to try to protect everyone they know from their horrible experience. And it happened because of that realtor that they're working with. So if we can't emphasize enough on the fact that you have to do more than what is in your power, you want to make sure that you really hone and focus on the importance of these steps on who we're sending money to with your buyer. Because just like there's a lot of disclosures that are mandatory, like lead-based paint, you want to disclose the danger of this, and it's actually part of our disclosures on the contract. So really instill that fear of what the possibility could be if your client does not pay attention to the emails that they're receiving to verify that it's coming exactly from you. And if they have any hesitation, to just give a quick call. Sometimes I'll let people know, hey, you can call me after every email to verify when I'm dealing with a lot of money.
Yeah, I just saw a couple of things on the chat. Just to reiterate, yeah, I think somebody asked the best way is to verbally verify. Yes, verbally verify. It truly isn't cumbersome for everybody. However, like Gabe just said, the only thing that will happen is if the buyer wires improperly because of something that was intercepted, we're all going to be blamed and we're all going to be looking bad. I guess that's the best way I could say it. And nobody wants that. So it's not difficult to verbally verify anything, the wire amount, whether it's the wiring instructions, whatever it is, just call. I know it's more annoying, I guess, and it's easier. We're also computer savvy and we all just want to do everything on computer. We don't want to pick up the phone. But unfortunately, in order to avoid these problems, we have to do this. And the other point is also if your brokerage offers you an email that is safer and secure versus Gmail, Hotmail, AOL, whatever, use it, because it also helps as well. Those are a couple things I saw in the chat just now. I had missed it when I was talking. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I want to piggyback on that as well. I pay, I believe it's $5, $6 a month for my own domain that no one else can have access to. And it's a domain that's going to be hard to copy. So if they see another email, it can't be Gabriel at Gabriel Does Real Estate. It's going to have to be, whatever made up name. And then they're going to start questioning, where did this come from? So you want to, if you can try to make an email that's, more special and particular to yours, easy to identify, hard to confuse, instead of just, South Florida Real Estate at gmail.com. Like that is just an email that's too easy for someone to fake and pretend to be you. So protect your online identity, protect your email identity. Give yourself a really nice, G Suite, like Jeff George just mentioned in the chat. Is a great platform that you can use that offers so much protection to your domain and to your email. So please take advantage. Awesome. But now I think we're going to be going into, transaction management, because it's extremely important. I'm not going to go into too many details of why it is. We're going to let Violet take over now and talk about the importance of managing your transactions outside of your email.
All right, guys, good afternoon. So I was going to touch base a little bit on total brokerage. So just so you guys know, there are other platforms out there. We wanted to touch base on total brokerage just because it is something that is offered by the Miami Association of Realtors. You can find the app on our dashboard. But I'll touch base a little bit on what it does and how it can help to prevent, things staying in our emails that can be hacked or taken or, end up in the wrong hands. So if we can go to the next slide.
Hey, Liz. Sorry. There you go.
All right. So most of the time we do have transactions, or most of the time when you first start in real estate, you do have transaction documents in your email. So like Liz mentioned before, it is something that should be removed from your email so that it's not there. So Total Brokerage allows you to create a transaction for each customer. And then you can assign all your docs onto that particular transaction. In order to sign in, obviously, it does have two-factor authentication if you set it up that way. It also checks to see if you wanted to create any contracts or anything like that, you can actually do it straight from Total Brokerage. And it will verify the email that you're sending it to. Most of the time, if it notices something that's off or kind of, I guess, in a sense, phishing, it won't allow you to send the email to that particular email. Everything is organized in one place, easy to find. If you happen to send something out to someone and you need to recall it, you can, which is great. So that link will no longer work for that particular document that you're sending out, which is a great feature as well. You can also check up to see if your clients have opened it, received it, if they viewed it, or if they've already signed it, whatever the case may be, which is also great to have. So if we can go to the next slide so you can see what it looks like. So like I mentioned, two-factor authentication, we have the verified email. So this is kind of what it looks like. You can enter your client's first name, last name, details about them. And then when the email is verified, it'll have a green check mark next to it. All right, so then, like I mentioned before, legal documents can be shared. It could be shared with the title company, it could be shared with your client, it could be shared with the lender. Any party that's involved within the transaction, you would just have to obviously enter them into the CRM portion. And then you can send it out and you can choose for how long they view it. So once they open it, they could see it once and then access to it is gone. If it's for a day, a week, a month, you choose which documents you share. So you wouldn't be sharing the entire transaction. Okay, so again, like I mentioned, you have the option on Total Brokerage to recall sent documents. You can view the status. A cool feature that Total Brokerage does have as well, you can send text and email with a Total Brokerage email. That email is unique to each transaction. So it's going to be specifically just for that one. Very difficult to come up with kind of the dynamic of how they came up with the transaction name for that email. And anything you send through that text it has like a log and a history. So you can see again, when it was opened, when it was received, if there was a response, anything like that. So you have a log of everything that went on during that transaction. And like I mentioned, you can find Total Brokerage on the Miami Gateway dashboard. There's some features that are very basic, and there's other features that obviously you can add onto your package, and then it'll give you more ways to customize the Total Brokerage that you're working with. If you guys want to learn more about Total Brokerage, you can find a ton of trainings on YouTube, and it specifically goes through most of the details that I just went through and additional information to teach you how to use the software.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Violet. Appreciate it. Total Brokerage is a great platform that we all have provided to us here by the association. So that terminates the end of our of our presentation. I'm hoping if anyone has any questions regarding cybersecurity. Do you hear me, Dora?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, if there was any questions regarding cybersecurity, I had one question for Liz before we take on the other ones. I wanted to know, Liz, if you could give us some examples of documents that you feel might be documents that we should probably terminate right away after the transaction. If anyone else in the chat wants to give some examples or have questions about documents that they're not sure whether they should delete or not. Like you mentioned driver's license, Liz, that's an important one.
I think you actually have a burden to keep some of that for a transaction that you still have going on. And you should check with your accountant or your broker, and they should advise you of that. Because should someone come back and say that there was some sort of issue with an identity, right? If someone with not that you would know, if someone had perpetrated identity theft and come to work with you and you worked with them as the you were working with somebody who was a criminal, you could at least go back and say, this is what they gave me. This looked legitimate. And so that at least gives you some protection. I'm not saying that you wouldn't be liable, but you would be a great deal less liable because you would say, oh no, I did verify their identity for this. But that said, if you no longer have a relationship, you no longer transact, or you didn't transact with them at all, if it was just a verification for a showing, you should purge that stuff regularly. But if there was a closing, I think that you probably do want to keep that to protect yourself.
Awesome. Great response. Did anyone else have any questions? I wanted to ask Violet about total brokerage and the expiration. If you could explain exactly what that means, because I haven't used total brokerage yet.
Right, so the expiration of documents is, like for example, if you're sending a contract to a lender, and you just want the lender to see this document, or I'll give you an example. You're working with a lender, they need to see the document. For whatever reason, the lender then does not approve the client. You obviously want to terminate access to those docs that you had on your transaction. So what you do is you just end the sharing of those documents with that person. So if they were to go click on that link or try to log in again, because you cut the access off, they wouldn't be able to access it. You can then send it to the new lender. Another example, if a client needs to see something, for example, maybe they need access to the Alta statement that maybe you upload onto your transaction, same thing. You don't want to be the one responsible for holding those docs or giving those documents out and having that person sit with your documents in their email, because the same way that they can get into your email, they can get into somebody else's emails. So in a sense, it's kind of to protect you as a realtor on what you're sharing with other people.
Understood. Awesome. That seems like all the questions we had. I had one more question for the audience. Has anyone here had a wire scare or know of anyone that's had a wire scare?
I mean, we've had clients that have had wire scares. In just about a week, about a month ago, we had a buyer. The emails had been intercepted, and the buyer got the email from somebody purporting to be the lender, and they actually had the amount, they had the logo, they had everything on there, and the buyer went to the bank. They did not verbally verify, they didn't call, they didn't anything, and they wired the $52,000, and they came to closing the next day and asked us if we had it, and we didn't. And the whole report had to be open with FBI, and it's really sad. And I had another one where the realtors, we don't know who got intercepted. I shouldn't even say that. I don't know who got intercepted, but the buyer also had the wiring instructions from us and the realtor and chose to go to his bank, and SunTrust even asked them, did you verbally verify with your title company? And he said yes. So they went ahead and wired, and that money was never recovered either. It's extremely important. You know, it is a really, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
I think the wire instructions is just really a part that makes us really vulnerable. I know a lot of agents, even myself at one point, would keep the wire instructions handy because we knew that it's going to be the same wire instructions, and it's all about speed when in this hot market and we're trying to send an offer really quick. But it's definitely a practice that we are 100%. You have to terminate that wire instruction every time you get it. We try not to even be involved in the wire
Yeah.
instruction.
Agreed. I think it should come from your title company, and hopefully you're working with your preferred title that has password protected, wiring instructions. And again, it is better to be annoying than to try and recover money that you're not going to recover. It's extremely important.
Awesome. Can you, I'm looking at questions that Meryl just asked. If you can verify what you mean by if it's too late to move to the other lender, because yeah, 100%. If there's a need to move to the other lender, then I wouldn't let the information that the last lender has be as a deterrent. But that seems to be, besides that, Meryl, if you want to ask me after the class, if you're not able to now. If no one else has any questions, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to learn and educate themselves on cybersecurity. You all should be extremely proud of yourself because you're taking the step and the initiative to protect your clients before the event is to happen instead of waiting till it happens to start educating and learning. So you all should be extremely proud. I'm really happy to be a part of this association that hosts these type of classes. So if you guys want to see more classes like this or have any topics that you're really interested in, feel free to send it over either to my Instagram, Miami YPN Instagram. Any feedback is always appreciated. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. We have one more. We actually have another event for Miami YPN later today. If you're a Miami YPN Pro, if you don't know what that is, feel free to reach out to Miami YPN or myself so I can educate you on it. And we will have more classes coming up. So stay tuned to our series and you'll be extremely content with all the education and value we'll be providing along this next upcoming month. You guys have a great day. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Violet. Thank you, Carolyn, so much for being here. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
If I find my way home, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy? Oh, don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Oh, don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Oh, don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Oh, don't you still amaze me? If I find my way home, yeah. If I find my